And we are live. Welcome, everyone. Hope you're doing well. We're going to be doing a little bit of a live reaction, so to speak. Let's see if we have a few people here. We have one. Good. Welcome, by the way. Here we go. Where is it? Let me see if I can get me on there. Okay, here we go. Now we're here. We're ready. Alrighty, so I wanted to be able to do more of an impromptu stream because there are a few videos that were put out there by Sargon of the COD, and again, I like Carl. I mean, I like his older work, not his newer work. If that makes any sense. Yeah, I like the artist formerly known as Sargon of the COD. Let's just say, pun intended. I don't know, but there was a video he made about the philosophy of visibility. And by the way, those who want to know, that was a Friday Night Firefight. It was a OST of Cyberpunk 2077. Love that fucking OST. I had a few things I wanted to comment on about this, because there are certain things I like, and there are certain things I do not agree with. Simply from a, I guess, philosophical perspective, or I guess it just doesn't sound right. It doesn't fit together. But we're going to play this.
If you are familiar with any theories of history, the theory you have most likely heard of
Fair
is
use,
Whig
by the way.
history. This was a term coined by English historian Herbert Butterfield as a critical way of describing the 19th century liberal view of the inevitable march of technological progress and constitutional rights ad infinitum. There are, of course, other theories of history, such as Marx's dialectical historical materialism, in which economic class conflict continues until material conditions are the same for all. It is from these mechanistic views of history that we get the phrase, the right side of history, as if it were an inevitable linear process, the end of which is therefore some kind of foregone conclusion. These linear views stand in contrast to Thomas Carlyle's persuasive cyclical theory of history, memes of which you've doubtless seen.
No. Okay. The cyclical cycles of history shit needs to stop. It's a tool by the elite to basically control people.
In his book, The End of History and the Last Man, liberal philosopher Francis Fukuyama presents an interesting thesis of history.
He Fukuyama pilled himself. No. Fuck Fukuyama. He's a hack philosopher. He doesn't have any real sway in any meaningful sense of the word. Nobody. People who reference Fukuyama are academics, and academics alone. All right, I don't know.
Which he draws from Hegel. Hegel's idealistic view of history is also linear and can be described as the struggle for recognition. In this view, the first men were, similarly to the
Welcome, Wolf,
savages, and human society began when one man engaged with another in a bloody battle for pure prestige.
Yeah, war is the father of all, essentially. War is the father of civilization. We get it. It's the same fucking Heraclitean bullshit. Or mixed with, thesis, antithesis, and all that. It's divination, essentially.
That is, when one man fought another to force him to recognize his superiority, and thereby turning the defeated man into a slave. The dialectical process, in the Hegelian view, is therefore a process of a struggle for mastery, in which the slave develops a critical consciousness over the millennia about that which they lack, recognition of an equal status to that of the masters. The masters themselves don't develop this, as they live with the apex of recognition, and do not need to spend time contemplating it. They instead only need to act. And so the motor of history is a series of constant demands for recognition from the lower classes against the prestigious higher classes.
No. I fundamentally disagree with that. Again, what does it matter? I mean, you could be the richest guy in town, and people will still call you a fucking, you're part of the Zionist cabal, or whatever the fuck it might be. Oh, you're part of the Masons, or something. you could be the best and the richest person out there, and it doesn't mean that people envy you because of your riches. Like there are so many reasons someone can envy the upper class or envy the lower class even. It really depends, and in some cases some people envy the foreign as opposed to the fellow. Go on.
Fukuyama found Hegel's theory to be a satisfying complement to the materialistic Whig view, which fails to explain the continued activism of people in the modern day. Materially, the conditions for minority groups are essentially the same as for anyone else. Hunger is a problem that the West has solved, and the apparently marginalized groups protest wearing the latest fashions and record themselves protesting on the latest iPhone. Through the purely materialistic frame, these minority groups look like spoiled ingrates.
Well, they are, and a lot of this is just due to the activist industrial complex.
They have the same civil rights and access to material abundance as anyone else, so what is the problem? It would seem inexplicable, but from Fukuyama's Hegelian perspective, it becomes more understandable. The core of their grievances are not really material in their origin, but idealistic, and we can see that the various minority grievance industries that operate today operate primarily on the axis of recognition. Take, for example, Black Lives Matter. The core contention of this slogan is that we do not recognize the importance of black lives and the struggles that black people apparently uniquely endure. And
No, it's literally just a slogan. That's it. It means nothing. It's okay to be white. It means nothing. Okay, like this means nothing.
the slogan itself is a way of marking out in our collective psychic landscape this group for appreciation by mainstream society. It isn't that this won't translate into vast sums of money being transferred from wider society to the interest group, nor that the activists themselves are not heavily, if not primarily, motivated by money, but the
and non-profits, like cracked it, like everyone talks about big corporations and stuff. No one ever talks about cracking down on non-profits. Like the abuse from non-profits, they get so much. Like people are like, oh, you can't make money. You can make tons of money on non-profits. You just can't make a turn a profit. Everything has to be accounted for. So like you can't make any ends. Like you could have a budget of $10,000 and everything has to be accounted for. And it just being I cannot stress the level of importance that nonprofits play in this whole culture war.
impulse for such actions is this demand that society recognizes the importance of this group. The concept of a trans day of visibility follows the exact same logic. Why would Biden feel the need to make an accidentally hilarious proclamation on Transgender Day of Visibility as if he were wearing a powdered wig and declaring independence from the British Empire?
Why would Biden do it on the leap year? Like, he does understand April 31st, it's not always on a Sunday. It just so happens this Sunday it's considered Easter, or this year's Sunday is Easter Sunday is Sunday, on the 31st. And even then, it's the very last part of the year, right? Or last part of April.
This is from
March.
the text that is currently on the White House website. Today, we send a message to all transgender Americans. You are loved, you are heard, you are understood, you belong. You are America, and my entire administration and I have your back. Now, therefore, I, Joseph R. Biden Jr., President of the United States of America, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Constitution and laws of the United States, do hereby proclaim March 31st, 2024, as Transgender Day of Visibility, Voices Nation to 2024. This statement were for recognition and love, rather than the latter concerns of harm and differentiation. He first tells the transgender community that they are recognized, and secondarily, that they will be made free from violence and discrimination. Harm is important, but recognition is the primary value. I think the reason for this lies in the social nature of the progressive activists, who seem to be the incarnation of Rousseau's social men, as he describes them in his discourse.
Yeah, this is what I wanted to talk about specifically, the social man. The concept of the social man. I personally take this, I agree with him. I actually would fit this role. The difference here is it's what do I see as prestige? You know?
On the origin of inequality. Social man lives constantly outside himself and only knows how to live in the opinions of others, so that he seems to receive the consciousness of his own existence merely from the judgment of others concerning him.
That's basically being autistic. No, like, legitimately. That is legit, like, hear me out, you don't know social cues and all that shit, right? And I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking to myself, my God, that is me to a T to a certain degree on certain things. Like, there are certain things I don't need people's opinion on, but ever so often there's stuff that I kind of have to read the room, so to speak, right? You kind of have to read the room and find out where should I go about this whole thing, right? I'm of the opinion that there's a balance here. Like, yes, you should have, like, for all the talk about political correctness, no one talks about tactfulness, right? For all the talk about, censorship, no one talks about, how should we say it, being, not even being humble, but again, being tactful. Don't try, you don't want to be, you can say stuff, but shouldn't always say stuff. There's a consequence to what you say, natural and otherwise.
These people don't exist within themselves. They exist in the opinions of others. It is the drive for recognition in the eyes of others which renders them as valid, which is a term you'll hear them use to confirm, even during disagreements, that each party is seen by the others. It is this mutual recognition that is sought after, rather than truth or logical coherence. It is only the savage man who exists in his own opinion relative to the concrete reality of his personal experience. So what are they actively pursuing from you? What do they feel that you are denying them through your lack of assent?
You're denying their higher self. You're denying their ideal self. You're denying their Gnostic projection of themselves, their residual self-image, the Gnostic view of their astral projected form. There's a reason why these guys want to wear anime, have anime style haircuts and anime style fucking what is it? Anime style, like colored hair, anime hair, right?
Well, it seems to me that progressive activists demand recognition because they wish to feel respect. They seek your validation because they expect to live in a social reality which believes in the equality and therefore the sameness of their way of life in relation to your own.
Which is exactly what I want to a certain degree as well. The difference here is I want to actually be, like, I don't want to go to college and not be considered educated, right? And at the same time, I also want to be considered educated by going to the library, reading books, and becoming autodidactic. But, one of those paths you are considered educated on, right? When are we going to have autodidacts be, visible? When are we going to have autodidact visibility day?
They wish for you to believe, as they do, that there are no differences between different ways of life. And the way to overlay this hyper-reality on the material world is through consensus. The savage, who lives outside of the false refuge of bourgeois consensus, may well point out the tangible differences and appeal to reason and truth, but these play no part in the consensus reality that the drive towards recognition holds. They are in fact barriers to it, and must be critiqued away as the irrelevant bigotries of savage men who have not yet learned how to be civilized. You could point out, for example, that
those fucking goths, they'll never be civilized, will they? They're gonna, the moment we let those fuckers in, they're gonna sack us, aren't they?
That a transgender day of recognition undermines the central thesis of transgenderism itself. that men can become women and women can become men, therefore making trans women women and trans men men. Having a transgender day of recognition highlights that transgender people are fundamentally not the same as cisgender people. This will make no impression on the activists themselves. They will not attempt to find a more logically consistent method of expressing their views on the subject, because that isn't what this was about in the first place.
It was about power. It was about power, and it was about controlling what people think of you. They're totalists. They're not totalitarian, they're totalists.
The point was to give universal recognition to all people in all groups, no matter what dark places that ends up leading us towards, because to the bourgeois social man, recognition without respect is cruelty. Which is why the transgender activists reacted in horror at the transgender monster voiced by a transgender actor.
No, shut the fuck up. No, Sargon, no. Okay. I know a little bit more about this particular side of what's going on YouTube than I'd like to think. Even though I don't play Dead by Daylight, but, I've heard people who I trust, talk specifically about this. The character in question is a monster that basically possesses dead people. So it's not necessarily that it's transgender. It's just a monster that possesses people's dead bodies, right? And it just so happened to have a transgendered voice actress. And then somebody claimed it as trans, like, it's transcoded, I guess the term is used. I guess that's the leftist term. Oh, we're coding it as trans, just like we're coding, Simba as black or something like that.
In the video game Dead by Daylight, it isn't enough to merely have representation and recognition. It must also be delivered in a form by which respect, status, honor, and value can be derived, because that's what all of the demands for visibility are really about. From their perspective, any attempt to make consistent the logic or make the beliefs conformable to reality are psychic attacks on the activists and their communities. In their minds, you are reputationally harming them by not buying into their consensus reality.
I think it was Robert Anton Wilson who once said, don't buy into anyone's BS or belief system. And second off, don't buy into your own BS or belief system. And honestly, at this point, I think that that's probably the best out for these SJWs, is for them to just become, don't just become global skeptics about the world, and then just trust your own five senses and then take it from there.
Accepting the validity of their claims. You, by the standards of universal recognition, must accept their differences are in fact samenesses, or else you are destroying their teleological view of history, rending the social fabric asunder, and ultimately causing them to cease to exist.
Hey, Polyclinicsy? Sargon the man who needs a thesis to explain the basic bitch rules of power manipulation to get more power. Fucking A. Honestly, like, the one thing I like about Sargon is his funny accent. Like, I showed my mom Sargon at one point, and he was just fucking bitching and moaning in, like, the funniest accent you could ever hear, and she started giggling just because of his fucking accent, man.
This, I think, is why they call it a genocide, when you refuse to indulge their worldview.
Yeah, it's like Christian shit, right? It's like that Platonic notion that if you don't believe in the concept of leaves, that every leaf on the... It's like if you don't believe in Pikachu, right? If you kill Pikachu, you kill him IRL, right? Like the idea that you could kill a meme, so to speak. Like, it's like Sandman or Neil Gaiman or some shit. Like, they're the endless, right? If you kill a concept, if you don't acknowledge that person, it's like killing a part of them. It's like killing, like, their platonic ideal of themselves, right? So it's a genocide. It's an individualistic genocide. It's a not genocide. I don't know. I'll think of some sort of pun that I could use, because that way we could just replace it. Because one thing I will say about SJWs is that if you can pull the hierarchy card on them, which is basically I know more than you, I know more spells than you. You could basically say, hey, you're saying climate change exists. Could you elaborate? Are you talking about man-made climate change? Are you talking about, let's say, natural climate change? Are you talking about as pollution? Global warming, global cooling, stuff like that? You could get them to elaborate, right? I think you could probably get these people to differentiate themselves if you could isolate them away from the collective. Like, you could deprogram the Borg and return to organic components, so to speak. But these people aren't really the Borg. They're more like the Phyrexians from Magic the Gathering.
But do you owe them recognition? Is truth more important than consensus? Is history a linear series of events which have a telos, to which there can conceivably be an endpoint? Do you think that minority groups have a moral claim over your attention and everything that follows from it? Do they merit the outsized place they have in modern political discourse? Do you, at the bottom of it, feel that these people are worthy of your respect, your consideration, and your love? They certainly think so, but ultimately, that decision is up to you.
Yeah, it is. And, unfortunately, it really does go back to Evangelion, doesn't it? It all returns to nothing.
Yeah.
No, you don't deserve love, unconditional love, you stupid little boy. You don't deserve to be just loved all the time. Yeah. It really all goes back to Evangelion and the end. Oh, what the fuck is that? Ex-Trump strategist Steve Bannon says he could end... What the fuck is this? I go after Bannon Lupical. We might do this later on. We might do this side quest later on. We'll talk... I wanted to point this out, this other little tidbit out. I want to see if anyone could see, like, since we're going to take on SJWs and wizards and shit, and yes, we are fighting wizards, the kind that use spell book, incantations and sloganeering, let's say. And this is one of the interesting spells that I've seen. See if you could catch it here.
Do not claim divine motivation for self-serving behavior. And that's what all the protesters are doing. We're so compassionate in public. It's like, no, I don't think so.
I saw this over the weekend, and I just thought it was absolutely spectacular. Of course, it's Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, okay, Sandwich Man. I'm just gonna call you P. I'm sorry, man, but again, I can't. Polixically, I don't know. I don't know what it is. The bell curve. We don't have the capacity to turn men and women into opposite sex. No matter how many magical tricks we could play. Well, you're playing word games at that. That's what you're doing. Sargon is the middle of the curve. Helios is unconditional love. I'm like, I'm at the point, like, yeah, I'm like, this is shit. This is just Shinji fucking taking over everything. Shinji becoming a office woman. That's what it is. It literally is just Shinji lashing out at the world because daddy didn't fucking hug him enough.
In terms of how you can be truthful when you are actually worshiping God or well, just watch. I don't need to explain, Jordan.
Do not use God's name in vain. And people think that means don't swear, and it kind of means that in some trivial way. But mostly
he's becoming more and more like a goddamn fucking Batman villain with these fucking suits.
What it means is, do not claim divine motivation for self-serving behavior.
Okay, do not claim divine motivation for self-serving behavior. Okay, let's try. Okay, sure.
That's what all the protesters are doing. We're so compassionate in public. It's like, no, I don't think so. I think you're narcissistic psychopaths, fundamentally. And if you're not, well, at that moment, you're certainly possessed by that spirit.
He literally just did the same thing that he accused them of doing. Did anyone see that shit? I am surprised that nobody has called Peterson out more often than this motherfucker. I've seen a few people in the skeptic community, or what have you, the fucking atheistic community, the type of people who would be really cool into atheism plus, those type of fucking people, right? Nobody calls this guy out. Do not claim fucking divine intervention for your own self-serving ego. How is it not self-serving for him to basically sort those people out? How does he know what they're thinking? That, again...
That's what all the protesters not claim some trivial way, but mostly what it means is do not claim divine motivation for self-serving behavior. And that's what... Okay. Same thing, but... Do not claim divine motivation for self-serving behavior.
Do not claim Gnostic knowledge for self-motivating behavior.
And that's what all the protesters are doing.
That's what you're all about.
We're so compassionate in public. It's like, no, I don't think so. I think you're narcissistic psychopaths.
Yeah, I think you are too.
Fundamentally.
Yeah.
And if you're not, well, at that moment, you're certain.
Well, if you're not, at that moment, you're suffering from internalized misogyny and you lack gnosis.
Possessed by that spirit.
Oh yeah, you're possessed by that spirit. It is so easy to fuck with. I love doing this, by the way. I would love to do this just at a Peterson rally and just fuck with them and try to basically slave the sheep.
How good we are. That's why Christ says in the Gospels not to let your left hand know what your right hand is doing.
What?
If you're going to be good, do it in secret. Why? So you don't fall prey to the temptation to make your good subordinate to your pride. Right? That's what the bloody Oedipal mothers do all the time. Look how much I love my son. Yeah. He doesn't even have a penis anymore. We saw
What? He is becoming a fucking Batman villain.
that problem for him.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. It's so bloody. It's so brutal. It's so dark. It's virtually unimaginable. It's such a pit.
It's such a prick.
It's so awful.
It's such a
And then
hole.
the mother can parade around with what has she got? Her son's genitals on a stick, so she can parade down the street. Oh,
Okay,
absolutely.
Freud.
And show her neighbors. Look how compassionate I am.
Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Sometimes apparently it's a fucking little boy's dick. With a fucking mother flailing around like it's a goddamn fucking mace.
No matter what he turns into, I still love him. Brutal. No matter what he turns into, I still love him.
Oh, God. One can only wish for such a love. I kind of want to clip that.
Brutal.
Would you say that, or would
Fucking
it be
base. Brutal.
something more along the lines of he
The fuck are
is so
you?
loving and so compassionate for having been at my breast that he has...
Look at this fucking get-up this guy's wear. Fucking dog tag. Fucking barcode. Fucking barcode hoodie. Fucking problem glasses. The fucking gangster style fucking 90s backwards fucking cap wear. Come on.
essentially voluntarily discarded these
that'd
toxic...
be her name. That'd be her cover story. And, the other part of that secret desire is, immense hatred for men. Immense hatred for men. For what that particular breed of woman thinks men stand for and are. So,
Okay.
Yeah. I think the issue with Peterson and Sargon is that there's a lot of people that are scared of what it would be like not to have faith in the boomer ideal of the liberal academy. Yeah, I don't have any faith in the liberal academy. At this point, if you're part of an institution, you deserve to be fucking shit tested. Like, ball field, battlefield. If you have a rank or a hierarchy of some kind, if you're part of that, you deserve to be shit tested. I fucking hate academics. Like that. The one thing I will say, whether we have communism in America or libertarianism or freaking we have the 80s again or the 50s or the freaking 2000s again, whatever the hell it might be, right? Um, the academics are going to go. Okay, whether it's fascism in America or freaking communism, or we have a little bit more of where we are right now, the academics are gone. And one reason is because both the academy hates itself because it hates because communists hate academics and fascists hate academics as well. So basically, academia is on its way out. It's a relic of the 20th century. The internet's a thing now, and I think AI is going to be the big player, the big game changer, so to speak. But going back to more of Sargon's bullshit, or not Sargon's bullshit, but here we go.
The turn of
More of him being a Mega Man villain.
20th century. Nobody talks about generations in historical terms. What generation was William the Conqueror, or Richard the Lionheart, or Sir Francis Drake? It seems nonsensical to apply it. In historical terms, we usually speak of eras. In modern terms, a generation describes all of the people born in a roughly 20 to 25 year time span.
I would say eras don't really matter. People could be part of an era, but they're still boomers, and you still have zoomers, and you still have the Gen Xers, and then you have the freaking actual boomers and whatnot. You still have them.
And it is assumed that these people will have had a similar set of life experiences, at least similar enough for them to have developed a kind of shared consciousness about what the world ought to be like. There's probably some connection between technological development, mass media, and nationalism that is the spur to a generational consciousness, and much of it seems retroactive.
No. What really is going on is that we're following a plot railroad, and the problem here is because it's so vague, it's so marketable, right? It's so marketable to everybody because one of the nature of the internet, right? So it's like selling the concept of the Kwisatz Haderach to somebody.
Until the latter half of the 20th century, it seems to me that people didn't really think of themselves as generations. They thought in civilizational terms. If Google's Ngram viewer is anything to go by,
Which it's not, by the way.
obsession with generations in general was fairly low until the start of the 1980s, and it skyrocketed at the end of the Cold War. Generally, though, the generations of the 20th century go like this. The lost generation, born at around the end of the 19th century until the turn of the 20th.
The World War I people.
The greatest generation, born after 1901 until 1927. Then the silent generation, born in the interwar period.
Yep, that's exactly what Wolfwood and Pepper said best. What's really going on is people are lashing out, are husks lashing out at anything to fill up themselves up with. Yeah, exactly. You could divide by any number of masses, but a zero will never make a one.
And through World War II. Then the baby boomers, born directly after World War II.
Frickin' boomers. Cicero would have had words about your talking smack about the generations, boy. Oh, Cicero, I need to read a hell of a lot more of him. I like Cicero. I've heard some of his quotes, and some of his quotes are fucking just absolutely quotable. Like, he's like the fucking wise old grandpa you never had.
Next came Generation X, my generation, who were born up until 1980. Following us are the Millennials, who were born up until 1996. Then the Zoomers, who were born up until 2012, and now Generation Alpha, who is still being born. I have no idea who gets to set these naming conventions, by the way.
Yep, and then they'll have the beta generation, and then they'll have the gammas, and then we'll have all the fucking, the whole Brave New World bullshit. Because that's what's going to happen. We're going to have Brave New World.
It seems that both the baby boomers and the millennials are similar in that they are both strongly self-conscious generations, both heavily concerned with social justice, their own personal wealth, and are intoxicated by their own civilizational missions.
Hell, even the the Old to New Testament in the Bible, there's a lot of speak about generations and covenants with God. Sargon is speaking too narrow of scope. He is, and a lot of this is because he's an academic. As an academic, he'll read the academic papers. He'll never be like just walking around in the library or doing laps on Wikipedia, right? Trying to find the sources. And yes, Wikipedia is not a source in itself, but the sources on Wikipedia can be used as a source. So there's that.
The boomers, of course, were a product of the Cold War. They were the materialistic muck generation who created the sterile spiritual void in which we live today.
No, there's not a spiritual void in this country. There isn't. What you're dealing with is you're dealing with a suffocation, a spiritual suffocation that's going on. And yeah, you can quote me on that, spiritual suffocation. You have all these people who basically claim to believe in justice and claim to believe in virtue, but nobody can agree on what justice or virtue is. Nobody can agree on whether lying is something we should not do, or lying is something that we should try not to do, but it's okay. Like white lies are okay, right? Is stealing wrong? Is stealing virtuous? Things like that. It's like the equivalent of an ancient Greek dealing with a Christian. Like the ancient Greek would see, subterfuge as something that would be to be admired, right? Like Odysseus or some shit. Even fucking Athena was like saying, "Hey, Odysseus is doing a lot of this shady, this guileless shit, right? You should fucking be happy for him. You should praise him even." Well, you're not going to get Brave New World. Instead, you're going to get the movie Brazil instead. Probably. Brazil. Yeah. I've seen that freaking... Well, I haven't seen it. I actually should probably watch it. I know what you're talking about. We're going to have a collapse and then an anthill society. Left, right, and center want it. Few reject it. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'd argue that the 20th century was a brief period of miracles that were only maintained by a smaller set generations that still had something in a pioneering spirit, something of a pioneering spirit. Yeah, I agree with you. Like, I want to go to space, but the issue here is that why haven't we started setting up, space stations and shit? Why, couldn't we just, set up, shoot some material up there and start setting up a space station? Do we really have to, I don't know. I want to see Elon make a space elevator. I think that'd be kind of cool. I would have to watch it. Yeah, I probably will watch it. I mean, there's a lot of things on my watch list currently right now. Treasure of the Sierra Madre, for example. I got to watch that. There are a few others I want to watch. But I'll add that to my list. Brazil is pretty good.
They were intrinsically liberal, but had the benefit of having had traditional conservative parents to raise them. They were not yet living in the end of history. They still had a great civilizational enemy to defeat.
What's funny is I actually consider my parents to be incredibly fucking conservative, despite the fact that they were boomers. In fact, most of the shit that they have said has basically come back and has helped me in a lot of ways. It's... Don't waste food, for example. I have plenty of food. In fact, I've been surviving off of the corpo diet. Whenever there's an office party, there's a lot of office parties. Holy shit, bread and circuses, right? I get to have all the bread, the leftover bread, and I get to bring it home, and I have two whole pizzas, but for myself. It's amazing, isn't it? I'd also add that Aaron Mactor. I don't know who that is. Mactor recently commented on dispensationalism and a very negative effect on Anglo-Christianity, who got worse in the 20th century, moved on. Yeah, a lot of this is because of spiritual leftism, dude. A lot of this stuff, I don't know what it... I don't know what it is. I don't want to say it's spiritual until I actually can encounter it, but there's a reason why, in Matthew, if you ever want to see, I'll pull this up. I have this up because I show this to people. Sorry for the freaking blindness here, but read Matthew 25 through 31 and 46. Let's see if I can pull it up here. This is very interesting. I'll read this off to you.
When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. 32 All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. 33 He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left.
The goats on his left. Isn't that wonderful? And if you recall, back during the French Revolution, right? What was it? The French Revolution, we had all the people who were loyal to the monarchy were on the right, and all the people who were against the monarchy were on the left. And that's where we get the modern paradigm of the right and the left, right? Well, unfortunately for us, the whole I've read the whole Bible, but refresh my memory. I showed. You're gonna have to refresh. Yeah, you're gonna have to refresh my memory on that. I don't know if you're talking to Felix. I'm sorry again. I can't remember your freaking name. I can't pronounce it. But I'm gonna go back to this video here.
Their war was one of proving that their civilization was better than the alternative through the mechanisms of freedom and culture. And on the 9th of November 1989, they won it. I was 10 years old when the Berlin Wall fell, and so I don't really remember it. My parents, however, did, and understood the significance it held in world politics. Generation X became adults in the post-Soviet Union era, one that was heralded by liberal philosophers like Francis Fukuyama as being the nearest mankind had yet come to living in the end of history.
We don't have an end of history. Stop trying to talk about the end while it's still being written. You know? You were reading comments I am before.
And for the people growing up in the liberal West, a place had been carved out for us which did look a lot like what Fukuyama and others had theorized. However, there was a consequence to this victory that wasn't predicted by the liberal theorists. The boomers enjoyed the catharsis of their spiritual and ideological conquest. Generation X didn't. We came after that and were told to enjoy the fruits of the victory. However, it turned out that the fruits of the victory were not as sweet as first supposed, and after a time it became evident that, in the struggle to defeat the communists on materialistic terms, we had sacrificed something important in the process.
Yeah, you did. You let a bunch of neo-pagans into your culture. They're basically fronts and for Marxist feminism and all the cultural Marxist crap. It's all spiritual leftist bullshit, and at the same time, you have these people who basically will weaponize, religions, minority religions, mind you. Again, the religions by themselves may be hit or miss, right? But generally speaking, they hate Christianity. They will say it's patriarchal, it's sexist. They won't even say it's barbaric or anything. Oh, they'll talk about that, but at the end of the day, they'll say about how virtuous the pagans were and how we should really. It was more modern. It's more like freaking. It's more like feminism. It's more egalitarian. That's what they'll push.
I posted this meme on Twitter which encapsulated the issue. It's a commentary from what I assume is a zoomer on the spiritual crisis of Generation X, and wondering how we could have been so miserable when materially we had it so good. The image is hilarious. It's from Fight Club. He's going to start talking about Fight Club, which I'll just say it, if you're Gen X and you like Fight Club and you're going to start talking about it even after the fucking thing was over, just don't. Fight Club is overrated. It's a fun movie to watch a couple times, but it's fucking overrated. They can't be an end of history. Stuff continues to happen. I don't know why people still think there's the end, unless the world just ends. There'll always be a new problems and gripes. Exactly. And the thing that gets me about this issue
is that a lot of this stuff is just manufactured. It's the leftists burning themselves out because they've been prepared for a war with capitalism that they never fucking would have won. What we're dealing with is we're dealing with the people who are still loyal to the emperor after World War II, and we're fucking encountering them trying to chop some fucker up on the fucking, some Pacific Island fucking sandals resort, right? Same, because they think that the war is still going, right? Here's the bright side. Here's the bright spot. Speakers like Aaron and Pagu are building various dialogues to restore the higher language that Christianity speaks to, which is not about the end of things, but of life. Yeah, here's the issue with that. The people who are claiming to be Christian nationalists, thank you for bringing that up, by the way, because there's another thing we're going to talk about besides this, but we're going to get to that after we're done with here. But thank you for this.
Itself is a still from the 1999 movie Fight Club, which still resonates today because it speaks to a particular vacuum in our lives, which is encapsulated in this quote put into the mouth of Tyler Durden, the film's anti-hero. I see in the Fight Club the strongest and smartest men who ever lived. I see all this potential and I see squandering. God damn it, an entire generation pumping gas, waiting tables.
This is how you groom people, by the way.
Slaves with white collars. Advertising has us chasing cars and clothes, working jobs we hate so we can buy shit we don't need. We are the middle children of history, man. No purpose or place. We have no great war, no Great Depression. Our Great War is a spiritual war. Our Great Depression is our lives. We've all been raised by television to believe that one day we'd all be millionaires and movie gods and rock stars, but we won't, and we're slowly learning that fact, and we're very, very pissed off. It is not enough to simply have things. One must have an overarching why, which explains why we are doing what we are doing. To be a cog in a multinational machine whose sole purpose was to merely produce consumer goods and services was, at the bottom
It was just a job.
of it, a soulless and deadening thing to experience.
It's a job. It's supposed to be soulless. Look, if I could get paid for getting stoned out of my freaking mind and pay my bills and actually make a profit, you better believe I'd be doing it. If I could get paid to be a food critic, for example, you better believe I'd do it. If I could be, but no one's going to pay me for that. No one's going to pay me for that type of shit, right? There might be people who do the food critic crap on the online. I know there was that one guy, that rat-looking motherfucker. I can't remember what his name is, but he reviews fast food, right? I don't know if he's making how much money on it. I mean, he's there's not much startup cost, right? He probably has the fame for it because a lot of people want to be recognized, right?
It didn't matter how much money one had, how beautiful an apartment in which one lived. It was still a cage. And no matter how beautifully gilded the cage is, it still serves its purpose, which is to keep you trapped inside of it.
Yeah, just become a Twitch streamer.
This is why the Matrix also took hold in the Generation X mind. Neo begins his life in the same place which Edward Norton's character occupies in Fight Club. He's an office drone.
It's fucking escapism. These motherfuckers want to escape. They have this escapist mentality. It's fucking stupid. I don't know. If you're saying I should just go on to Twitch, I might start doing that. I mean, I have a free weekend this weekend. I'm gonna be going to the hell you call it. I'm gonna be going on to get my car freaking get the windows tinted this weekend. So that's gonna be fun. So I'll basically be free. I'll probably set up Twitch and then basically hopefully not get banned, right? Basically hopefully not get banned. Why not? Yeah, I think that'd be something I could do, and then show up and then have the podcast, which is on Sunday, by the way, for those who want to know. That's going to be out there, so who knows?
Replaceable cog in a machine, the purpose of which he has no investment in at all. He is not doing it for any reason other than to be keeping himself economically afloat.
Sargon, you fucking commie. It's a job. You're not supposed to like it. Be thankful that you have the ability to get paid for it. You know, whether you're a glorified bellhop, can you imagine can you imagine, like, being a bellhop in the 1920s, right? Or like the olden days, right? Like right around like World War One, World War Two, that in between period when people had, you know, the bellhop business, right? Those motherfuckers, it was going to go away eventually. We all know it. Things happen. You don't see them often anymore. Just do the job and move on. Yeah, you're going to learn new stuff, learn new skills, right?
It's no wonder that when presented with an escape from this life into a life of suffering and adventure by Morpheus, he is inevitably drawn to take it. Better a short and dangerous...
He was conned. I hate to be the guy that says this, but there's a point in the fucking movie where he has a nervous breakdown. He asks, hey, can I go back? Well, you can't go back. There's no choice. You don't have a choice to go back. I mean, they made that very clear, so, like, it makes the character of Cypher look more and more like he's delusional, like he's crazy or something. You know, the thing about Wachowski's, they were going to have Cypher have a way bigger role, and I like the actor who plays Cypher, or Davis Arini as I know him, right? Because of the Wachowskis were too dumb to understand how to go beyond their initial premise, their sequels blew the entire Gnostic reveal when they explained the revolutions can be managed. Yes, exactly. The fucking... he literally is called the architect. He designed the Matrix. He speaks in, like, fucking academic terms concordantly. While your first question might be the most pertinent, and you'll also find it is the most irrelevant, or some shit like that. Like he's he's the type of person who I would have to use profanity around just to fucking make him feel better and say you're a fucking asshole.
Dangerous life as a hero than a long and safe life as a domestic animal. What is being expressed here is that mankind's needs are not purely material.
You can't hear me anymore.
While we all have the understandable desire for material abundance, we also have a desire for self-actualization, what Nietzsche called the will to power, a drive to make for ourselves an order which we can call our own. Being trapped...
Yeah, it's this Luciferian mindset of, oh, we can't have things the way they are. They have to change. They have to change for the world, has to change for me.
In a material world which is also devoid of spiritual gratification leads us inevitably to a dilemma. We must either break out of the system, which refuses to recognize our individual agency, the fact that we are characters in a story, or kill the part of ourselves which demands such recognition.
Plot twist that even Morpheus is revealed to have been calmed by the architect and the oracle at the same time. At the end of the trilogy, Morpheus is rendered pretty much useless as a hero or even a guy. He is! And you know, the sad part here, this is what I kind of am hoping for in the next... they're making a fifth one, by the way. I don't know why not, right? I mean, we're living off of millennial nostalgia. We're in the same place that the boomers are in, where they're buying, you know, Flintstone memorabilia from their fucking childhood. Millennials are in the same vein. Why do you think they have all the millennial toys being resold in freaking Target, right? You've seen them before. The ones that are like the high, like the Todd McFarlane type crap. You remember that shit, right? Yeah. Or the stuff from the 1980s that's being resold and repackaged. You know the stuff like the Star Wars crap. Yeah, that stuff. They're reselling us our childhood.
Generation X.
Now, what I was gonna say is, in the Matrix, I think they're gonna make the Oracle be the bad guy in the new one. They're gonna make the like they already had the Gnostic fucking the Gnostic evil patriarch father, right? Now we're gonna have the Oracle is the crazy psychotic fucking, you know, delusional borderline from Delphi, you know?
Fantasized about the former and dreamed of embracing a Nietzschean master morality in which they set new values, but we did not find the bravery to act. And the millennials decided to go in the opposite direction and embrace the latter slave morality, killing off their own sense of pride and self-worth, abasing themselves into the undifferentiated sludge of equality. The millennial worldview is entirely consumed with systems of power which are completely inescapable from the perspective of the individual. They do not have heroes in the sense that the boomers did, nor do they have anti-heroes in the sense that Generation X had.
We have adventuring parties. We have groups of people we chill with. Some of us are rogues, some of us are rangers, some of us are marines, some of us are fucking super spies, maybe even a Hulk or two.
Personal agency is not sufficient to overcome the world in which they are trapped, and perhaps this is simply a rational response to the circumstances in which they were raised. Millennials in general looked to the power structures around them and attacked them with the last weapon that they possessed, their own weakness.
What the fuck? No, they've been very, very, very good at attacking the power structures. They've been very good at it, but not with their own weakness. They've been attacking it with one, I would say, the knowledge of how the internet works. We were the first generation to have access to the internet, right? We know what it was like before the internet. There are very few people who remember what it was like before the internet. Those people are slowly but surely dying out, including yours truly. But yeah. Yes, Nietzsche, the philosopher who every red pillar blabbers on about, but no one who used his philosophy has been successful in working for power. Yet, honestly, I don't like Nietzsche. I think Nietzsche is overrated. He's a fucking teenage boy's dream, essentially.
Their response to their lot was to collectivize and use this collective power to reshape the systems to make them conformable to their position of powerlessness. The millennial struggle is to overcome struggle itself. It is to have nothing with which to struggle against.
No.
In consequence,
No, not
millennial
always.
psyche is
Some of us want to struggle against struggle itself and basically take over and fight just to fight. You know, it's like we need no reason to fight. We fight because we are needed. You know, soldiers without borders, so to speak.
pathetic, dilapidated thing, shorn of self-respect, congenitally degenerate, mewling, helpless and afraid. They embrace anything that could be considered to be oppressed against anything which considers itself to be free, with the viciousness of the slave turning upon the master. To have pride in oneself is seen with suspicion, as it implies an inherent good in differentiation. And the consequence of this was to simply confirm the power of the ruling principle of materialism over themselves. They reject the spiritual because it is spiritual, and embrace.
No, they reject the spiritual because it's relative. We don't live in we live in a multicultural society. If I tell you that something is good, you can say, well, that's just your opinion, man. And it be treated as such. It's not seen as the majority opinion. Well, that's evil. That's democracy. That there's no representative. What about the individual? That's what we're dealing with. The leftists who blabber on about individuality are the same motherfuckers who basically would love it to have pluralism of all these different cultures: the Jews, the Gentiles, the freaking the Islamicists, the freaking Sikhs, the freaking Hindus, all of them holding hands. It's never going to happen. It's an ideal that cannot happen, unfortunately. You could pick a few of them, but not all of them. And we're going to get to why we have to get to a few of them.
Embrace the material because it is material.
Because it's
Millennials
real.
see themselves
It's hard.
merely as lumps of feeling flesh in an accidental universe, and therefore reality should be made conformable to satiate their intrinsic desires, and the code of the slave dictates that it is immoral if it does not. The job of the therapist is to make the millennial accepting of the cage in which they have been trapped, not to
Yes.
escape it.
Yes, you're correct about that. The therapy industry does not help anybody. It is literally a industry that literally keeps you wounded. It's like a controlled burn. Like what they'll do is they won't bandage you up and actually get you on your way. What they'll do is they will open up your wound every so often, bleed you a little, then stitch you up, and then open you up again. You know, I've been in that type of system, and I will tell you that the only way I've actually grown as a person has been to be out on my own and not going to a therapist, essentially, and not going to any of these life coach type of people, whether they're the red pill or like, oh, they're a life coach like Jordan Peterson or some shit like that, right?
The cage is ultimately powerful, and the millennial ultimately inferior, and therefore they must accept that they were in fact made to live in a cage, and the only moral thing left to do is ensure that the cage is made to properly house them. This is their great civilizational quest. They are the children of the end of history.
The apocalypse generation.
Telos of progress is to deliberately produce people such as them, and they will never wonder why, if they really were made to live in a cage, that they must go to therapy every week to make the experience of existence itself bearable. And so we come to Generation Z, the Zoomers. What of you?
What of you?
On the nexus of a convergence of generations that preceded you, you can see our faults and our virtues. Do you want to join the obsequious millennials in their eternal cages and embrace Canadian healthcare, or are you going to set values for yourselves and undergo the tremendous labour of rejecting the slide into the undifferentiated mass of humanity?
How about neither? Because a lot of the millennials that are succeeding, those are the ones you should be emulating because they're the ones who figured it out. Here's the issue with Sargon. He's a Gen Xer who fucking figured out how to succeed by basically being a political activist. He ran for office once. He should run for it again and actually try to run on his own clout if he could, right? But he won't do it again because the activist money is way too good. The activist clout is way too good. People would rather be Jane Hanoi Fonda than be Richard Nixon.
I think there's something that Generation X and the Zoomers have in common. We have already been through what you are going through. We also had a domineering generation above us, imposing its values and rules, to which we were forced to grudgingly accept. We are both the successors to powerful and vocal generations which were irredeemably infused with leftism. I think we wanted the thing that you also want. We were just not strong enough or self-conscious enough to achieve it.
You didn't have the gnosis, right? But here's the thing that gets me: I'm so sick and tired of being written off as a millennial. Like, oh, you're all screwed. Like, what about the people who are actually trying really hard? Like imagine, for example, myself, for instance. You don't party in your 20s. You don't fucking chase tail, not because you don't want to, but because you're trying to actually, go for the family. You want the family, the house, the white picket fence, the wife, the kids, the car, the whole fucking 1950s bullshit, right? You go for that. You work as hard as you can through your 20s, and then come your 30s, because you're told in your early 20s if you work hard, you will essentially be able to, if you do it young, you'll be better off when you're 30, and then you can start partying in your 30s. Come 2020, everything falls apart. Do you know how the millennials who busted their ass feel? Can you imagine, sacrificing everything and then have this fucker basically just write off the generation as being incompetent and weak? No, fuck that shit. He's making way too many fucking just broad statements about generations. So he starts with, so where are we? We're right here. He starts at the premise that the generations don't exist. And they're not really useful. What generation was fucking so-and-so with? Stop. Don't focus on labels, for fuck's sake.
The problem of Generation X was a lack of civilizational purpose. We didn't know what we ought to be doing. And we were lucky enough not to have internet porn on demand and a feminism-obsessed generation above us to destroy our ability to form relationships. So we were disincentivized from stepping off the tracks because of the West's relative economic prosperity. For us, it merely remained a fantasy. You, the Zoomers, do not have that luxury. So you need to think about the kind of people you want to be and the kind of world in which you want to live. Because if the birth rates are anything to go by, time is running out.
Yeah, and you know what's funny is that people are sick and tired of this fucking... like people like myself. Like, here's what I got from it.
Dennis Quaid is one of the most famous
Nope.
actors in the world.
Nope.
He's been in about
We don't care, Tucker. Go away. Fucking Russian shill.
Find something to believe in and find it for yourself. And when you do, pass it on to the future.
Believe in what?
That's your problem.
That is basically what that is what we should be doing. Now, again, I hate to be the guy who says this, but I really am at the point where this is the death. I think that the 2020s, before the end of the 2020s, we're going to see the death of all these activist people. People who didn't get on and do something with their lives, like whether it be Sargon, Mundane Matt, which Mundane Matt, I've been watching some of his like podcast here and there. He's doing fairly well, but he put his family first, and I have respect for him in that regard. Fucking, I believe that these activist types are going to go away. Whether it be, you know, Hassan basically being Hassan's own worst enemy, or, you know, freaking, how should we say it, Sargon basically trying to reignite Gamergate, because that's really what this is all about, right? That's why he was there. Here we go. Now let's get some news from the city by the bay.
Apple is laying off hundreds of workers in the South Bay, and a terrifying attempted theft caught on camera. A Bay Area woman has her car window smashed while she was inside. I'm Audrey Assistio. Let's get you synced in. Apple is laying off more than 600 workers in the South Bay. The cuts are set to start on May 27th and will impact employees in Santa Clara. Workers were officially notified last week. The layoffs come after Apple canceled a long-running project to build an electric self-driving car.
Oh, you don't fucking say. Well, I bet you that felt like a fucking waste of time as a career. Gee, can you imagine working on a project like that and it never coming to fruition? Could you imagine, like, being the guy who... That'd be like the equivalent of working on, let's say, the original, what was it, the Apple Newton, I believe it was called, right? That's basically what happened to the people who tried to work on the self-driving car. They got demoted to the people who worked on the Newton. Not the iPhone, but the fucking Newton.
Apple isn't saying whether the two things are connected. This is the company's first significant round of job cuts since the COVID pandemic. A new trend creating new concerns. Thieves are now rushing up and breaking out windows while people wait at red lights. An Apple woman's dash cam video captured her screams as she struggled with a masked man who broke through her car's passenger side window and tried to take her bag while she was at a red light in Vallejo. The man finally gave up and the woman was able to drive to safety. We spoke exclusively with the victim who hopes her experience will help others.
Fucking white girl.
I've always known, growing up, especially living in the Bay Area, that if you're parking your car somewhere, like, don't leave your purse, don't leave any bags, don't even leave, like,
I would like to take this chick out for a cup of coffee, Caroline.
a water bottle. I've always known that growing up. But I didn't think that when I was driving that I would have that same risk.
Like, everything is a question? Like, you're not really sure of yourself? So, like, you kind of have to, like, explain it?
Smashing my windows.
Vallejo police say a second woman was victimized at another intersection just 45 minutes after Caroline's attack. Same suspect, same vehicle description. So far, no arrests.
So far, he's shit. Who'd want to play fucking Grand Theft Auto in fucking Vallejo? I mean, why not, right? I mean, the guy basically burglarized two different people, right?
One lucky lottery player in San Jose woke up a whole lot richer this morning after winning big on a scratcher. California Lottery says Tui Ho won a $2 million jackpot on an instant prize crossword ticket. It was.
Let's see, where is this? TP's Liquors. Oh, wow, that's right next to fucking Martinelli's. Jeez. Wow, that's really close.
Sold at TPS Liquor in San Jose. Meantime, the Powerball jackpot is up to an estimated $1.3 billion. Good luck. Okay, one more thing before we go. Solar eclipse is Monday, and all eyes are going to be on the sky. But we want you to stay safe while watching, so we've posted what you need to look for when it comes to solar eclipse glasses. Just head to NBCBayArea.com and click.
Oh, God bless. You know, I'm going to be going down to fucking Tucson on Monday, and I'm probably going to see the bloody solar eclipse. So, what do you think is going to... Actually, chat, this will be interesting. What do you guys think is going to happen with this solar eclipse? I don't know. I just wanted to talk a little bit. That's all. Anyhow, I think I'm going to end it here. This is just me, spitballing. I wanted to do a live stream at some point, TGIF, everyone.